Hello, everybody.
We're just waiting, Tim, for Ray to try to come back in. He was having audio issues.
Okay.
I'm not seeing him yet. We could just go ahead and reorganize, name him chair, and then close the meeting, right?
There you go.
What's going to happen anyway?
Do you want me to give the oath to Elizabeth since she's here, Jim?
Go right ahead.
All right. So Liz, if you could repeat after me, this is the Vermont Oath of Allegiance, and you may have it in front of you. I, Elizabeth Albertson, do solemnly swear.
I, Elizabeth Albertson, do solemnly swear.
That I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont.
That I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont.
And that I will not directly or indirectly.
And that I will not directly or indirectly.
I'm not sure how much to give at once. Do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government thereof.
Okay, you can break that into two.
Okay. Do any act or thing injurious.
Do any act or thing injurious.
To the Constitution or government thereof.
To the Constitution or government thereof.
And this will be dated the 10th day of March, 2021. And now the oath of office. I, Elizabeth Albertson, do solemnly swear.
I, Elizabeth Albertson, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the office of Prudential Committee member.
That I will faithfully execute the office of Prudential Committee member.
For the state of Vermont.
For the state of Vermont.
And will therein do equal right and justice to all persons.
And will therein do equal right and justice to all persons.
To the best of my judgment and ability, according to law.
To the best of my judgment and ability, according to law.
And this too will be dated at North Bennington, Vermont, this 10th day of March, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Kim, if you could repeat after me, this is the Vermont Oath of Allegiance. I, Kimberly Crawl, do solemnly swear.
I, Kimberly Crawl, do solemnly swear.
That I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont.
That I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont.
And that I will not directly or indirectly.
And that I will not directly or indirectly.
Do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government.
Do anything you have to say.
Okay. I did do any act or thing injurious.
Do any act or thing
injurious to the Constitution or government thereof.
To the Constitution or government thereof.
And this will be dated at North Bennington, Vermont, this 10th day of March, 2021. And the oath of office.
Yes.
I, Kimberly Crawl, do solemnly swear.
I, Kimberly Crawl, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the office of Prudential Committee member.
That I will faithfully execute the office of Prudential Committee member.
For the state of Vermont.
For the state of Vermont.
And will therein do equal right and justice.
And will therein do equal right and justice.
To all persons, to the best of my judgment and ability.
To the best of my judgment and ability.
This will be dated at North Bennington, Vermont on this 10th day of March, 2021.
Thank you, Lori.
Did Ray ever come back? No. Okay.
I got an email from Ray. I just sent him the link again. He said that it's saying that he's been excluded by the host. So I wonder if I inadvertently did that when I removed him from the meeting so that he could come back, thinking he could come back in since he was having issues. So we'll see. I sent him the link again, see if it, otherwise I'm going to tell him to call in.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I'm no longer on Amy Goslin's email list I somehow got bumped off because I always was. And when I look at who this is to and why I couldn't find it, so I'll have to take care of that.
I'll send her an email and include you on it too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Nice day today, huh?
Oh, it's beautiful.
He's still not in, so I gotta see if I can. How do I security? Trying to get him back in. What if I this is kind of crazy. What if I close the meeting and then restart it and everyone tries to come back in? Want to try that?
Sure.
All right. So Cat TV, I'm going to close this, end the meeting, then I'll restart it.
Hello,
Hi,
Ray.
Ray.
Hey.
Hello, Ray.
Ray.
Hey.
Huh?
Well, can't see you.
It's all right.
We can hear you.
All right.
And you can hear us now, right? All right,
Yes.
let's see. Did everybody come back, or are we missing anybody?
Looks like everybody's here.
Okay. All right, then Cat TV, you all set? You're
You're
muted.
muted.
Cat TV, is it all right to begin the meeting? I'm going to assume yes, since they are here. Okay. For nominations to be the chair. Are there any nominations?
Well, actually, Jim, first we have to swear in
We did.
We
our
did that.
reelected.
We
Oh,
did
you
that while
did
we were
that?
waiting for you, Ray. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Lori was right on top of it.
All right.
Very good.
Okay.
So they're all duly sworn in. So
All
at this
right.
time, are there any nominations for the chair of the board?
I will nominate Ray Molyneux for chair of the board.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second?
I'll second that.
It's been first and seconded. Are there any other nominations? All in favor of Ray Molyneux, please say yes.
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 Are there
Yes.
any opposed? Are there any opposition? Any abstain?
I'm just being silent. Yes.
Okay, so we record that Ray Molyneux abstained. I'll declare that Ray Molyneux was there. Wait a minute, did I ask? Were there any other nominations for chair?
Yeah, you did.
You did.
Thank you. I'm confusing myself. So I'll declare Ray Molyneux has been duly elected the chair of the board, and I am turning the meeting over to him for the election of a vice chair, a clerk, and representative to the SVSU.
Okay. So, are there any nominations for vice chair?
I'll nominate Matthew Patterson.
Are there any other nominations for the chair? And Matt is willing to serve, so we'll have our vote. All in favor of Matt Patterson serving as our vice chair, say aye.
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 Aye. I believe that's unanimous. We move on to the board secretary. That's the person on our board who if Lori's not available, could take minutes for us.
Ray, let
Bench.
me interject for a minute. Did Jim leave? No, Jim's there.
No,
I'm
he's
here.
there.
So Ray doesn't have, you might have given him, you know, the controls to the meeting, but he doesn't have a means to do that on the phone.
No, I didn't
Right.
give him the control.
You
If
haven't yet.
I leave the meeting, Matt, I'll give it to somebody that I know has full access.
Okay.
So I'll make
Thank you.
someone else the host, but right now I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Thank
I
you.
won't do it with Ray because I don't think I can make him host of the meeting if
No.
he's participating by phone. Nope, I
Yep.
just looked, I can't. So I'll either
Okay.
make Matt or Lori or someone. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, you can make Lori. She's good at being in charge. So.
All right. And I'm going to make her the host, but I'm still going to stay here as long as the
Okay.
internet holds out. So, but that way the meeting can continue without me. Go ahead.
Super.
So, do we have a nomination or a volunteer for being board secretary for this coming year?
Yeah, I can do that again if you want me to.
I'm sure we'll accept you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Anyone?
This is just in case when Lori can't do it, just what I've done previously, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yes, I
So,
agree with this position.
Are there any other nominations for this position? I'm assuming none, so I will proceed forthwith to call the question. All in favor of Kim as our board secretary for the next year?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so now we've got SVSU board representative and alternate to that board. I've served as this representative for a number of years, so I'm well experienced, I guess. That's in my favor.
I nominate Ray for the SVSU representative.
I will second that nomination.
So any other nominations? Anybody else want to take that position on? Hearing nobody, shall we call the question? All in favor of me being
Excuse
the
me.
board representative?
Can I interrupt Ray for 1
Sure.
minute?
Sure.
Typically what you've done is you've authorized the delegate, but you've also authorized an alternate in the same motion. And the alternates generally in the past been Matthew.
Okay.
When we reorganize as a board, alternates don't exist anymore.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we don't need to create an alternate at this point, you're saying?
Yep. Right. When the board got reorganized in Arlington and Sandgate coming in, so it's
Okay.
there are none of the committees have alternates anymore.
Okay. So we'll quietly quash that particular bit of dialogue, and we will move on to appointments to SVSU committees. There are three that I thought of: policy, personnel, and budget.
Did we, excuse me, Ray, but did we actually nominate you for the alternate or for the?
We haven't voted. That's right. Sorry. So we have a nomination on the floor. That is Ray Molyneux for the SVSU board representative. And I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. So we move on to appointments to SVSU committees. These are appointments, not nominations, but I've taken on personnel and budget, but I leave policy open. I will take on personnel and budget again this year, so I'll appoint myself, I guess. And policy is open to whomever would like to do it. Kiernan had signed up to finish out last year, and it's kind of up to you, Kiernan, if you want to continue or if you want to relinquish that position. Depends on you.
I know. Kim asked me, and she said she'd be an alternate. I mean, I can do it. That's no issues if Kim can be the alternate.
Yes, absolutely.
I nominate Kiernan for the the position of
Well, actually, this is an appointment. So I'll just appoint Kiernan.
Thank you.
And I'll appoint Kim to coordinate with Kiernan when he can't make it to become a member, to go participate for us.
Thank you, Kiernan.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Then we need to authorize the chair and the vice chair to sign for board business in interims between meetings when we don't have a meeting in a month, such as in July. So I would propose that we authorize the board chair and the vice chair to sign for warrants and any other business that may need signing for in between meetings or in between when we don't have a meeting on a month. And I would take a second for that authorization from someone in the board.
I'll second.
Hello? Okay.
Authorized. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Is there, I don't imagine there's discussion, but anyone can speak now, or we can just vote, go to vote. Silence means we'll go to vote. All in favor of authorizing chair and or the vice chair to sign for board business and interim between meetings, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Board meeting schedule for this coming year. We've been notably unsuccessful in predicting when we were going to have a board meeting, but I know that July we will not have a meeting at the beginning of the fiscal year. Beyond that, I guess we could schedule for every month, and the likelihood is that in January we will have an extra meeting or two to deal with budget issues. I will warn you of that. And if we have a chance to have an off month without a meeting, we will decide that on an ad hoc basis, looking ahead at from the previous meeting to that month. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
I only heard one voice, so anyone else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Right, we're
right.
shaking our heads too, but you can't see that through the phone.
Oh, I definitely can't see that. I may be feeling the breeze through the ether, but.
So my only question would be what restrictions Liz might have.
Yep. So we could ask her that, and she could tell us.
On time.
Time and day of the week.
Tuesdays are the only evening that is rough for me.
Yep. Is Wednesday okay? That has been our traditional meeting day.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. And our meetings are normally the second Wednesday of the month. Sometimes that gets altered, but in general, I would try to stick to that, except when we're working on the budget in January. Sometimes we move them around just to accommodate people's, board members' schedules or schedules of SCSU personnel or the head of school, the village school.
Yeah.
If that's okay, we'll stick to the second Wednesday of the month unless otherwise determined by the chair.
And 6:30 is okay?
And 6:30, yes. Is that okay with you, Liz?
Yep, it is.
Okay.
I do. My husband's on the BECC board, so when we're back in person, childcare is going to become an issue on our meeting nights because it's the same time and dates. But that's something that we can figure out when we're back in person.
Okay. So does anyone else have any issues with that kind of scheduling?
Negative.
Okay. So we can vote on this, but we don't really have to. I think it sounds like we've done it by acclamation. We'll stick to 6:30. And that will go for whether it's Zoom or in person, should we ever get back to such meetings. Okay. I have listed the minutes for the annual meeting from the 29th of 2021, not 2001. But these are not to be approved by us. I'm just making a point of it because since we had a Zoom floor meeting, we could not approve the previous year's floor minutes. So next March, assuming that we are in person and can actually have a floor meeting that has authority to vote on such things, we will have both the minutes from February 27th of 2021 and the previous meeting's minutes in 2020, the date of which I don't remember exactly, but I just wanted to point that out, put that on the record, because we did not approve those minutes at that meeting because John Lamson pointed out we had no authority to do it since we were not in person. Okay, we're on to public comments. You'll have to tell me if there is any public.
Excuse me, Ray.
Yes.
I have a question of something that we did in this particular reorganization last year, and we haven't done it, and I don't know if it's necessary, but Jim Culkeen, you might be able to answer this. Last year, there was a motion made to authorize you or your designee to execute on behalf of the school district purchase orders, agreements for consulting, grant agreements, and other contracts, and so on and so forth. Is that something that you just wanted done last year? Is that something you want done every year?
I think that was part of the pandemic planning. I don't think we need that at this time. And I don't do very much of that for this school board either, but if it turns out to be wrong on that, then we'll put it on the agenda for April. But
we never passed that anyway last year.
Right, you didn't pass it last year.
Right. And like Jim says, it doesn't appear that there's any particular necessity of it at this point in time. Hopefully, we're all getting back to in-person business, maybe by the end of the year or something like that. I don't know. At any rate, as Jim says, there's not much need for that in our particular situation.
Okay, well, it was just a motion and the motion was so voted. So I just wanted to be sure.
No, we didn't.
So maybe it's two different things. Maybe it's not the authorization.
Maybe it's something else then.
Well, these minutes were approved. These minutes from
the Vermont School Board Association. This could be just the normal operating procedure, because I do sign.
Right, and this was
something.
This
March
might be
11th. The auditor language.
Okay, so I just want to say that it was approved and it was voted on, and Kim seconded it. Matthew made the motion, and everyone in attendance voted for it. So
yep. Then it's not the one you didn't vote for. Might have probably not been March. It might have been more like April. So this is the standard language that every board votes every year. That
came along later.
Yeah.
Right. So could you actually read the resolution, Lori?
I can. I'll read. Yeah. Matthew Patterson made a motion seconded by Kim Kroll to authorize the superintendent or her designee to execute on behalf of the school district the following: purchase orders, agreements for consulting services, grant agreements, and other contracts arising, affecting the routine operation of the school district. The superintendent or designee shall not execute any contracts resulting from a public bid process, any employment agreements, and any long-term contracts without express authority from the board. This was so voted by all Prudential committee members present. So that was part of the reorganization of the board and appointments to committees. That's when you did that, and you did that last year on March 11th.
Yeah, shortly before we went into COVID. Right.
So correct. So that's why I bring it up, because I'm just reviewing everything so nothing's missed, and that was there. So
boy, that was like hunker mode, wasn't it? Didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we didn't exactly. All right. Well, we'll put it up there. See how the board feels about it. Since it's pretty routine matters, I guess I'm not terribly affected one way or another in my feelings, so I'm okay with it. As well, you know, I assume that Jim would consult with us anyway about anything, either the chair or the vice chair, unless we have expired somehow. Yep. At any rate.
So do we want to vote on actually doing that, or was Jim's recommendation to wait?
I think we could ignore it for now, but otherwise, I don't really have a strong objection to it anyway at this point in time.
I recommend it.
I don't think it's going to get used.
Right.
In case something is necessary, you know, he is the head of the supervisory union, and for routine matters, certainly he should have some authority to take care of things for us if we need it.
I think that's implied anyway, though, kind of.
Sorry?
Isn't that kind of implied anyway? With
Yeah, it's pretty much implied from the description, the job description, and the context of statute for what the superintendent status is in the supervisory union. So
I think
we're affirming that, and I'm fine with that. So
yeah.
So I'll call the question. Do we have a second for that, or do we need? We proposed it, I guess. I'm proposing it, so we need a second, and then we can vote it.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay. Aye.
All right. Thank you, Lori, for pointing that out. So there isn't any public, correct? No one's shown up still. So we'll move on to the finance report, the treasurer's report for February.
Yes.
Was enclosed.
I am here. I will start by saying a thank you to those who voted in the recent election and for support shown for the position and the work that I've done. As far as the treasurer's report for last month, really much like the month before, there was nothing of noteworthy. There was received and deposited the quarterly lease payment, however. And so I will note that.
Thank you.
If there are any other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Hearing none, I guess we'll move on to the consent agenda. Which has minutes from February 10th, 2021 and February 27th, 2021, and the warrants. And we should move it. I'll move that we adopt them. And with a second, I will have one bit of discussion about the warrants. Need a second?
Second.
Thank you. You'll notice that there are payments made to the village school and to Highland Hall and South Shire, and the South Shire payment has a 10,000 and change dollar credit in it because a student moved out of the district at the beginning of December. That accounts for why that credit sits there. And that's about all I really have to say about it. There isn't anything else noteworthy there, I think. Oh, one other thing. The village school payment has gone up. That's because at our second census for the village school, which is just our census, it doesn't go to the state, and it's not part of figuring our equalized pupil count. The number of students went up by 4 from 109 to 113, but then right at the beginning of the month, a child moved out of the district. So the actual number was 112. We had 109 before, and so the average is 110 and a half, and so the number had to go up that we pay for the balance of March, April, and May. That's our final schedule payments for the village school tuition, and that accounts for that change, that plus up, so to speak, on that amount. It is still going to leave us with a budget surplus on the village school based on having built our budget around 114 as a number of students, and we had been paying at a rate of 110, or well, actually to 109 after the census. So we're still going to end up with a surplus in that account. And to go back one step to the accounts for the month showing expenditures versus budget. I just looked at this before the meeting, and I see that under tuitions we look to be having a surplus in the range of 68,000, 63,000, something like that, and then in one other category, I think it's 68. And in one other category, we have a surplus of about 63, at least estimated at this point, which, depending on how other things go for the rest of the year, that you're looking there at pretty much the fund balance you might expect, or at least the range of the fund balance you might expect for FY21, which would go toward our budget for FY23. And moving on from there, unless there are questions. If there are questions, I'll answer them. We move to the superintendent's report then.
Evening. Probably the biggest announcement we have is on Monday we open to students coming 4 days a week in our elementary schools, and that's all students. So the hybrid modification, we call it phase 3. So where most students were doing 2 days a week, A and B group, A on Monday, Tuesday, B group, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday, asynchronous, will become that 100% of the students will be in the elementary schools 4 days a week, with Wednesday remaining asynchronous. A little bit more difficult in the high school and middle school because the distancing guidance is 3 feet in the elementary, and it's 6 feet at the middle and high school. So we may not get to 100%, but the administration in both those schools are working to bring as many students in as possible. It is our understanding that the state committee that set the safe and healthy guidelines last spring is meeting again next week. At least that's what we've been told. I have not seen it officially. We only had it verbally. And that they will be looking at whether temperature screening will still be required upon entering the building. And the science on that has always been somewhat questionable, because there's been plenty of people who have COVID that never had a temperature, but their thought was that it promotes a guidance, that makes people be more conscious and know they're being screened, but it is a burden to get everybody screened into the building every day. So that may change. And the other thing that we're hearing is the 6-foot guidance may become 3 feet, as the Secretary of Education said to us this week, or last Thursday. The CDC recommendation is 3 feet. Europe, it is 1 meter, which then he reminded us that a meter, is the equivalent, slightly larger than 3 feet. So got a little math lesson there. And so we'll see what happens. It may not change. I mean, we've heard, again, that guidance is going to change, and then it doesn't change. But so we'll wait and see if it does, because it really would impact. We are planning for starting to plan what graduation may look like. Right now, guidance remains the same, so it would most likely be the drive-up graduation that it was last year. But what I asked the administration to do is to make alternative plans, so that if things potentially change, could we pivot? How quickly could we pivot to like an outdoor graduation, and still practicing physical distancing? How many students could we do it in groups or batches? Because it certainly, I don't see it being as restrictive as it was last June. But there also is, drop dead deadlines for like ordering chairs and platforms and staging. So, if the state doesn't change its guidance in a time that then we can react to, then the default will always be the drive-up graduation. The other is, I'm sure you've heard, teachers can be vaccinated in Vermont. The first round will be this Saturday. Our partner with this is Southern Vermont Medical Center, and they've been excellent. And, I criticized maybe even in this meeting, AOE, when and the governor, when they indicated that we all need to be back in school full time for April 1st, but at that time they weren't making vaccinating educators a priority, and now they have. So I have to commend them for that. I think they've listened, and so it's slated for the next 3 Saturdays. I'm hearing that the first 2 Saturdays are already booked, and that there may be some issues with signing up for the third one, but we'll see what daylight tomorrow morning tells us on that. But it has been a quick turnaround on that. We were told Friday that it would take place those dates. We didn't receive our school codes by till Monday. Teachers have to go online and register by their school code, and we didn't even know that was going to happen. We were willing to partner with the village school. They had reached out to us, and some other organizations in town that also deal with our children and our students, and can we get them vaccinated? And we were trying to be as inclusive as possible. But then, in my understanding and email with Tim today, is that your school received its own code, and I'm encouraged by that. But that we're still gonna, so our staff will be safe, but or safer, because this really doesn't mean that you can't get sick. You just won't get, hopefully, as sick as you may, and the risk of serious illness or death goes away with the vaccine. It is the 1-dose vaccine, Johnson & Johnson. Educators also have the ability to go onto the Walgreens website and sign up for the 2-dose option. That is on there. They would have to do that on their own, but they do have that. They get a priority when they go into that. So that could really, I think that we could see some rapid changes then once that takes place. And the other that would impact us is, we did a remote week after most of the school during Thanksgiving, the winter holiday, and the February vacation, because of concerns about the amount of travel and exposure. And that way it gave kind of a cooling off period for a week after with remote to keep the virus out of our buildings as much as possible. And the hope was that, if you did have symptoms, they would show before you would return a week later. And that worked very well for us. It certainly was a hardship on our families, but I think it really kept schools open as much as possible. We're still dealing with, outbreaks and, with the public health, and having to look at whether certain pods within buildings have to be shut down, because we can't let our foot off the gas yet. It's, this is still a crisis situation. But because of the I don't anticipate that we will do the remote option after April vacation, based on the governor's comments that if people are vaccinated, then in a 2-week period after they've been vaccinated, then they're considered fully vaccinated, and he's not going to put any restriction on out-of-state travel for people returning who are considered fully vaccinated. So I think we shouldn't have any staff impact on the week after the April vacation. So that's good news for our families. And I just want to thank all the voters that our budgets have passed. That was a relief. Thank you for the support. Thank you to the board for your work on that. It was, and to all the town clerks out there, and it's what a challenge this election cycle has been, and so different than anything, but it went off and our budgets have passed, and I appreciate that. So are there any questions for me?
Well, I'd like to thank you for reaching out to Tim about the vaccine codes. I knew from listening to the news conference that they had separate codes, but I appreciate that you reached out to check that with him. I'm glad that this is beginning to look like we're pulling toward a finish line. Previously, it's not looked like that. And I, too, would like to jump in on the congratulations to and thanks to officials that ran the election and to the public. Our own official here, Lori Elwell, did a fantastic job.
As she always does, but thank you, Lori.
Dealing with us, and we should publicly thank her. And since I wasn't sort of distracted at the beginning of this meeting, I never got around to it. So thank you very much, Lori.
Jim,
any other comments about the superintendent's report?
I have one question for Jim. Jim, do you have any idea whether you may consider 5 days a week at some point?
We certainly are discussing it. I would like to get there as soon as possible. I don't. Let's say we're reviewing it. Let me put it that way, Tim.
Yeah. But no, I'm in the same boat. I'm just curious.
Yeah. It wouldn't be before the April break. Like, it would be wonderful for me to say that we're going to return from the April break and be here 5 days a week. It depends what the governor does with whether he still says we're in a state of emergency, because then that would impact my negotiations with the unions.
Yep.
So
how many kids do you have who are fully remote because they've just, as a family, decided that they need to do that?
I think the latest statistic I saw I think we're at like 16% for the elementary schools, and 25% for the schools of MAU are still fully remote. 16% for the elementary, and 25% for the middle and high school.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
No, just on the public record, I'd like to echo Jim's comments about the vaccine. I think it's just going to be a huge sigh of relief for a lot of our staff, and most of my staff has already signed up and is on the lists, and people are sort of picking between the Johnson and Johnson or the 2-dose vaccine. So I think it's going to be just a tremendous change for just their overall feelings and things like that. And so I'm very excited about that, and I appreciate the state's work in making that happen.
It's going to be a game changer, Tim, and
absolutely.
I will say this: I can't believe that next Wednesday is St. Patrick's Day, because that marks the 1-year anniversary that we are in this situation. You know, we shut down on March 17th last year, and I think I naively thought it would be a couple of weeks, like they were gonna make everybody lock down for 2 weeks and kind of let the virus pass over. And then I remember thinking, like, well, maybe certainly we'll be back maybe the month of June, so that we could do all end of year activities. And then it quickly became apparent that was never going to happen. And it probably wasn't until end of April, beginning of May, that it then became, I remember saying to Director of Finance Operations, Renee Gordon, who you may be aware, her husband is the football coach. I remember saying, hey, how's Chad going to react when I tell him there's no football in the fall? And she goes, oh, don't say that. Don't even joke about that. And it happened. It's amazing the impact. I mean, I should mention the ESSER grant money that we've gotten. We're going to get in ESSER 2 is a substantial amount of money that will help. We have to submit by next week our recovery plan. I'm not sure if the independent schools being required to file recovery plans.
I am unclear. I put in a message about that because everything says the supervisory union and the LEAs have to do it, but there's nothing in there that says we have to do it. So it sounds like we'll be maybe working together on that, because possibly.
Yeah, and so I have to submit who my recovery coordinator. This is a 3-year effort. At least they're acknowledging that we can't just do in this summer, like have summer school this summer and recover everything that's been lost. So a 3-year recovery plan. I have to appoint a recovery coordinator by next Friday, or it might be the following Monday, but it's coming up soon. But we already have that. We already have the plan staked out. We have a draft of who's on this recovery team and what some of that work would be. Because a lot of what we were doing, what we called our continuity of learning team, that met at one point every day, then it dropped down to 3 days a week, and now we're doing 2 days a week. That core group will also become part of the recovery team with some additions and subtractions, but there's a lot of work. And we are planning for some. I had a meeting this morning with both the bus contractor and the food contractor about summer programs. So we are going to do that, but I'm also mindful of just how exhausted our staff is right now. And I hope I can entice enough people to want to work this summer where everyone seems ready to run for the door. So everyone needs a good mental break, and hopefully we can get that. We're slated. Our last day of school is June 11th. That's one thing about remote learning and snow days has not had that impact on us. So we'll at least get people out early enough in June that they can, if they are going to teach for us in summer school or summer programs, they can at least get a little bit of break and a little breathing room before that starts.
Oh, one other piece that Jim probably knows, but didn't necessarily, as they extended the free and reduced lunch program through the summer as well for all.
Yes, they did.
All students within Vermont. So that was just another thing we learned about, I think, today or yesterday.
Yeah, I think maybe yesterday. So that was good. And like I'm hearing that ESSER 3, Tim, might be even more money than ESSER 2, and I'm like, there's problems with that because there's going to be such a strain on getting enough staff to do programs, and we have hiring issues and open positions all the time. Never mind, but now if every school system in Vermont is looking to add recovery programs, could be even a further brain drain on that. So, but it's positive. It's there. It's not the cuts that we thought we were going to see. I think the legislature's done a tremendous job. The Ed Fund seems to be recovering. We put everything to a freeze. We held the teachers agreed to a wage freeze until we saw, and the support staff and the non-union staff, they were all wonderful and they agreed to take that. And then we renegotiated with them once it became apparent that the funding level where it was when we planned the budget. So that, a lot of good cooperation and a lot of frustration too. I know that I think from the emails that I'm getting, Tim, you asked about the 5 days a week. I should mention this: the discussion that we're also having is, what is more impactful on families, or should I say less impactful? Because we do a shortened day by an hour on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, because that hour in the morning is when teachers are connecting with the students who are remote. So like if it was a day, you're using that morning to connect with any students who were in the B day, or in theory, that's what's supposed to be happening. So that's impacting families because it's a later drop-off time. So when are you going to go back to the normal time? So before I go to 5 days a week, I think my preference would be to go back to the original, our traditional starting time. But it's also possible that, with how many weeks are left, we may just keep it the way it is too. We surveyed the principals this week for their views on that, and I've heard back from a few, but not all of them yet.
Yeah, I think for us, it's still the challenge of the fully remote families. I mean, the Wednesday is the day that a lot of our teachers are focused on them to try and make sure that those families are getting what they need and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's a challenge.
And that's what'll make it. If we still have those percentages of remote that I told you, then I don't see how we go back to 5 days a week this year, because that's when the teachers are doing the bulk of that connection with the remote families.
No, I fully agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you both, Jim Coquine and Tim, for that update from the perspective of the supervisory union and the perspective of the village school of North Bennington. And considerable congruence there. Thank you. So the last item on the agenda is the chair's report, which is basically where we have been putting all our business that's local to the district. And the first item is just a probably brief discussion about the annual meeting and the vote. I thank Lori for this, and she and her helper Pam Weber did an amazing job, and the vote went off without a hitch in North Bennington, aside from people not sending in their ballots. Some people lost their ballots, so they would come by, a few of them, and because I sat in for the last 4 hours or so with them, come by and pick up and fill out a ballot in the office. And the vote was very positive for the moderator, who got 370 votes, and I won't read all these numbers, and Lori, who got an astounding number of votes. Mary Rogers, also a very high level of support, and Kim and Liz, a high level of support from the community. And the articles passed very well. We appreciate the community's response to the budget, and hopefully we will be able to surmount the problems and difficulties of coming out of this pandemic over the next year. And I believe that thanking the legislature was quite in order, since they managed to piece together almost, funding for the Agency of Education and for the school districts that held everybody pretty much harmless. And that, given where we started with talk of $60 million in the hole and more, is quite an amazing thing. And I guess our Congress people were also in part to thank for that, since it involved the CARES Act and ESSER funding as well. So that said, anybody offer any ideas or comments on the vote, the election?
Ray, I'm just curious about the total turnout with the mail-in voting and all that.
Well, okay, so we had, say, for Article 6, allowing us to borrow money, we had 398 votes there, but for Article 8, the budget for the district as a whole, we had 404 votes. And for Article 9, the tuition rate to the village school, we had 405 votes.
Yeah.
And the numbers, it's amazing to me that Article 9 for support of the village school generally gets more votes than the total budget, which, of course, the article depends on the budget. But that's the way it goes. Still, that's like Article 8 for the budget was 264 to 140. And that's between 2 and 3.
2 to 1.
Multiple.
So,
and the Article 9 for the village school was 299 to 106.
Wow. So Lori,
pretty great support.
In terms of total numbers in previous years, what was the relative percentage of those who came out and voted, or voted whichever way they
I didn't really check that, but Lori maybe knows that.
So it was really about the same, which was really interesting to me. I sent out 1,783 ballots by mail, and I'm still getting them back. I got a ton of them back last week, but it was after the vote. But really, when you think about it, the votes that were counted from the mail-in were about the same as the votes from last year when people came in. So that was just really interesting to me. What else was pretty interesting to me is the amount of ballots that came back that were undeliverable. And, it just changes so much. And that would be Shasbury ID 1 and a lot of those, and North Bennington too. So I gave that information to both Marlene and Cassie, the clerks in Shasbury and Bennington. But, a lot of college students aren't here. They signed up to vote for the presidential election and, might not be interested in the school. They don't know the school, so.
Right.
So yeah, it seems like it was a lot of work for the same amount of votes.
Well, we appreciate it. And in fact, we will be applying for funds that the Secretary of State, the Vermont Secretary of State, has for making up for COVID-related costs of holding the election. interesting comment from Jim Kosis about the guidance. I think it was about the guidance from the Secretary of State's office that he thought it was clear as mud. But it seems clearer to me. So hopefully we will end up with a large portion of the costs of doing the mailed out ballots and processing them covered under that funding from the Secretary of State's office, from the legislature and the governor in the origination.
Yeah, it was. Hopefully it will. I mean, we were almost at. I bought $4,600 worth of stamps, and then I ended up not having enough, and I had to go buy more. So we're close to $5,000 in stamps, just stamps. So,
wow. Yeah. We did well for the post office.
We did.
And so I believe Jim Kosis will be putting that together based on the invoices and support that Lori provided him. And one of the things that we paid for was what Lori is paid for in this warrant that we signed tonight, billed for her time, Pam Weber's time. Heather Bullock was a poll worker for a bit, and the stamps, the envelopes, the creating the code for the ballots and creating the code for reading the ballots on the optical scan equipment. And I think it went off well. I think it would have been. I won't. We were told that we couldn't send out the MAU ballot on the back of ours as we normally would do, and as it ended up, the way things played out, I think we probably could have done that, given that people like myself who. Unfortunately, I failed to solicit a mail ballot on MAU. I had to go and vote on that when I came in the afternoon because I didn't have a ballot and they wouldn't give me one downtown. So, any rate, it went very well considering, but it was an incredible multiplier effect on the amount of work that got put in the hands of Lori, who's very capable, but still it's a lot of stress and a lot of work. And we thank her for handling it so well. Okay.
Thanks, Ray. Let's not do this again, okay?
Okay, I'm okay with that. Yeah. At any rate, the last item of business for us, really, since I don't think that there's an other, is that we had some bids on our EMP work and on our roof replacement work. And I think we ought to consider those in executive session. And there's really the EMP work, was the bid that we did receive was under the $15,000 limit. So the fact that we only got one bid doesn't impact it. And it's pretty much a formality for us to vote that this evening. The other two, the roof replacement, we had 4 different contractors look at the job, and we ended up with 2 bids, and we solicited from the state, from the AOE, the Agency of Education, a waiver to make a decision based on only 2 proposals as opposed to 3, and we got that yesterday. So we are good to go, and I would entertain a motion to move into executive session to discuss these contracts.
So moved.
I was wondering if I could ask a question of Mr. Culkeen about the recovery plan.
Go ahead.
Well, it's a little out of order, but that's fine. We'll go ahead with that, and then we'll go into executive session.
Okay.
Once it hasn't been seconded yet, so.
So am I allowed to ask a question as an employee of the middle school as well?
Yes.
Okay, so we're hearing.
I may not answer it, but go ahead.
That's fine. We're hearing that retention is not on the table for students as part of the plan for students who haven't been attending. Is that correct?
It would be special circumstances with approval from the superintendent if a principal wants to retain a student. Yes.
Got it.
We're not going to use this. We think there's been enough harm done to these students than to do retention. So, and that is, there's so much research and data that backs that up. So, but I'm not going to say that there won't be any students retained, but the guidance that we gave to principals that, we will consider it on an individual basis with approval of the superintendent and recommendation of the principal.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Liz, would you provide a second for us going into executive session?
Sure, seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we'll move into executive session.
We're out of executive session, and I make the motion to accept the bids for the lead abatement project. And Ray,
it shouldn't be abatement. It's called essential maintenance practices.
okay.
Use that because that means something specific to the state.
The essential maintenance practices, and we're awarding that to who?
Roy Terry,
Roy Terry.
Bennington, Vermont.
And
in the amount of $14,500.
What he said.
Yep.
And then I will also make a motion to accept the bid from Doxy Roofing for the roof replacement project in the amount of.
Yeah, the base price is $73,700, subject to
amendments and additions or
clarifications.
Clarifications. Yeah. Good. All right. Amendment resolutions. Two resolutions made, and we need a second for both of them.
I'll second for both.
Thank you. And if there's no further discussion, then I call the question and we vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's all of us, I believe, from what I heard. So I would accept proposal to adjourn.
so moved.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Good night,
Thanks.
everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.